Holy shit. Hey everybody, Alex here, and welcome to another video. The first of a 4-part series in this whole leap year, leap game completion thing. We're doing everything in fours. 4 years and 4 months, 4 quarters, 4 games. That's kind of how we're going to do this thing. So, similar to the games I finished this month video series I used to do, we're going to be doing one specifically for the games I finished that are leap games, and the full intent is to do 4 of these videos throughout the year, and it's going to be 4 games each time, so that way I can actually go a little bit more in depth on them. And unfortunately, I do have limited time today for recording, and the cat's hungry. But it is not his time to eat, so there may be a jump cut somewhere in between here and now, or you may just hear my useless furry assistant making noise in the background. Some of you know him. Everybody say hi. Okay, anyway, on to the game. So, the way that the leap year challenge is working, in case this is the first video you're seeing, I was born on a leap year. So I have a birthday this year, and for all you guys who know the year I was born, fuck you. 40's looking pretty good. So, really what I decided to do, since I do a yearly video game challenge for myself, I wanted to do 12 games, basically 12 games that were released in leap year, and I went all the way back to 1984. I have my list up in front of me, and I just listed off a bunch of stuff I thought was interesting, not an exhaustive every single game that was released. And the idea is I'm going to pick and choose as I go, and hopefully get rid of some of this retro stuff that's been chilling in the backlog for longer than it needs to be. But at the same time, I did include more modern stuff, including some stuff releasing here in 2024. Just because I feel like, you know, there's some really good stuff coming out, and I should really check it out. So we're starting off with the first game that I finished, which was a 2024 game. The second game I finished, that was a 2024 game. And that's the new Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. Now, my experience with the Prince of Persia series is actually the first game that at least I know of on the Sega CD. And it was originally on PC and all that stuff. And it was during that time when rotoscoping for video games like Karaka was very popular. I think this was rotoscoped. But essentially, if you've ever seen that very old Lord of the Rings movie where all the characters are kind of walking around like this and whatnot, basically those are actors that it's a very primitive method of motion capture, and they were just animated over. So if you watch that movie, you'll see, because it was expensive, there's one scene where they're running, and I think Boromir trips and falls, but he falls like on a prop or something and kind of just barrels over when there's really nothing there. It's a terrible movie. And the interpretation of the members of the Fellowship is just it's ridiculous. There's a famous scene, you can YouTube it, where they're at the gates of Moria and Gandalf is doing the speak friend and enter, and he's basically just screaming egg roll at the top of his lungs. He's like, egg roll, and like the meme is like Gandalf must be hungry. Yeah, okay, we're really off pace talking about Prince of Persia here. So, I had played that first game on the Sega CD, and kind of like the flashback games, where it's a very precise platformer. You either make the jump, you don't make the jump. You have to have pixel precision in order to basically traverse the game. And there is combat, but you kind of sort of don't want to get into combat unless you absolutely have to, because it is so slow, and so I guess you could say with a purpose, that you could just die if you hit the wrong button at the wrong time. So needless to say, I never made it past the 3rd screen, and the load times didn't do me any favors. And that was the last time I played a Prince of Persia game. We had a ton on the PS1, we had some on the DS, I believe. We also had the trilogy that everybody seems to love on the PS2. And spoiler alert, having finished this game, I actually want to go back and check those out because I never played them. Same thing with the Xbox 360 and PS3. And ironically, there is another Prince of Persia game on this list, which is the Prince of Persia game, I believe it was released in 2008. Yeah, it was the one-off version where they were kind of trying to reboot the series, and they did it with a very weird cell shading thing, and I don't think it took off. It has been considered a hidden gem by many of the YouTube gaming community over the years, but that was on this list. I put it on there because I thought, who knows, maybe I'll want to play another one. Because this Prince of Persia game is, from what I gather, a radical departure. It's a Metroid-style game. But I believe it to be more than a Metroid-style game because the platforming, while not one-to-one for what I was used to back on that Sega CD Prince of Persia, it plays like another favorite game of mine, which is Celeste, where even if you die in a platforming sequence, you get a little bit further every time. You learn how to do it every time. And the abilities you get to basically traverse through this Metroid-style map are essentially platform-driven. You get an air dash, you get a double jump, you have the ability to rewind time to pull yourself back to a platform before you fall on a pit of spikes because there's an item you're trying to get. And just because you hit the button to pull yourself back in time, it doesn't necessarily mean you just teleport back. It actually kind of like goes like a pull system, so you can still die while the animation's going off. It is very precise. And the combat itself plays kind of like, and I hate to use this analogy, it's Souls-like combat, but it's more so driven by a parry system. So think of it more like your traditional side-scrolling Castlevania-style game with a sword, except now you have a dodge button and you also have a button where you can parry. And you get special moves that are charged by successful damage taking, damage giving, or pain making, and also parrying and all that fun stuff. And the special abilities, there's a healing one because you gotta have one, but a lot of them are mostly damage based. And well, I was leaning on the healing one because you do get Estus flasks or the equivalent thereof. You also get items that can enhance your HP. You don't gain levels per se, but basically finding abilities and finding amulets which you wear around your neck. Those are really where you customize your character. And you can switch them out on the fly, basically as soon as you're by a save point. So you can enhance your damage, you can enhance your defense, you can make it so you do more damage while you're jumping, you can get extra arrows, stuff like that. Infinitely customizable. But as these things go, I found something I liked, I maxed it out, and I just stuck with it the whole game. So in my case, it was pain making and going with the special abilities that seem to cause the most amount of damage. One of the abilities early on you get, if you nail it perfectly, it does 25% damage every single time. It is really freaking broken. Especially since the boss fights tend to have phases, much like your traditional Soulsy type game. And the bosses are very varied. You get your overly overly animated, spider thing, all that fun stuff. I don't want to spoil anything because the boss fights are all really good. They're all very unique. But something strange happens in this game. And of course, I'm not going to talk about the story because that just ruins the whole fucking thing. And the story's actually pretty good. Prince of Persia purists were really upset. I don't understand why. I thought it was fine. Maybe you wanted the same game over again? I have no idea. I went into a bunch of the theory crafting after the fact, and honestly, some of the arguments are valid, but a lot of them just seemed like a bunch of bitching and moaning because it wasn't the game they wanted, which I don't know what that is because I never played them. But as a Metroid fan, as a Castlevania fan, as a Monster Tale fan, because I always have to mention that game, this was right up my alley. And it was a day one purchase for me. It was a day one play for me. Even though it's Ubisoft and I know in 2 weeks it's going to be $9.99 on ultra liquidation clearance, it was totally worth the money for me. It took me about 18 hours to do, and that is without getting 100% of the map. There is a lot to explore. The platforming in this, ultimately Castlevania or Metroid style games are about exploration, but when you combine the platform elegance and precision of Celeste and things like that, it becomes addictive. You'll see a sequence of spikes and you'll be like, all right, I think I can get through this. And then you get through it and you're like, whoo, what a rush. and there's more. And you're like, all right, let me see if I can get through this part, because it's very generous with the checkpoints and getting you through these parts. And you're like, okay, I made it. There's a chest over there. Okay, if I jump on this way, I do a double jump at the last minute, and I cling onto that wall and then drop down so I can do an air dash and double jump again, I could potentially make it. Then you die. So then what do? You make a duplicate of yourself at one point. So that way you get far enough, then when you die, you just teleport yourself ahead of everything you just did, and then you have a double jump and an air dash again, and then you make it. There's a lot of trial and error stuff like that, and it's kind of puzzly, and it's actually really rewarding. Overall, I could not have been happier with this game, with the way it turned out. And honestly, if they make a sequel, I'm all about it. This cat won't shut up, so now he gets to sit here and help. Say hi. All right, he's probably going to either sit here or he's going to get lost in the next minute or two. And people say pets aren't like kids. Yeah, I love you too. All right, get out of here. Anyway, now that my credibility as a heartless bastard is up for debate. The good thing about this challenge is that I can play older games and talk about potential nostalgic memories I may have with those games. So after finishing Prince of Persia, I decided now's the perfect time to go back and play Perfect Dark. Unfortunately, Perfect Dark is on the one system I do not have a decent HDMI solution for. I do have one of the, I think it's Hyperkin HDMI S video conversion things for the N64. It's shit. It's not even worth fucking using. So I decided the next best thing was to use the Rare Replay collection and play the remaster on the Xbox Series S. Because that would give me a little bit better graphic fidelity, but it also retains the gameplay largely, from what I understood. And as part of this challenge, I told myself I'm allowing myself to utilize the most convenient way for me to actually finish a game. So Perfect Dark, when it came out on the N64, it was a big deal, obviously. Rare's follow-up to GoldenEye, all that stuff. My friends and I, we were huge fans of GoldenEye. We would have nights where we would eat Domino's pizza, cheesy bread, chicken wings, and two liter bottles of Diet Coke, because believe it or not, other people besides me drink Diet Coke at meals by Cooge. But regardless, we would play GoldenEye until the wee hours of the morning. And we had rules. No proximity mines, no odd job, no iron jaws, no crouching. Especially his odd job. No fucking crouching. And no golden gun. We would do knives only. We would do standard. We would say certain levels were barred. Certain people would literally have to die 3 times because they were really freaking good at the game. We would do it where we would actually have to look at other people's screens on the split screen and basically try to guide each other. So it's basically us just shouting over each other to try to win matches as like a team thing. We went off the deep end with this one. So Perfect Dark is announced. It's the follow-up. It uses the RAM cart. There is no reason that we should not be all about this. We all bought it day one, and we never played it multiplayer. What happened? Honestly, we were perfectly happy just playing GoldenEye over and over again. I think at that time, truthfully, it was because GoldenEye had that movie license tie into it, and we were all James Bond fans, and we all went to the theater to see it together and everything else, because this was grammar school for me. 6th grade, 6th grade. This was like the time for like after school on a Friday going to movies with your friends. Because that's what we did. It was PG-13, easy peasy, nice and breezy. Rated R, we had to get a little bit more creative, but you know, we saw a couple of rated R movies and whatnot. But it's really funny because I mentioned this to one of my friends after I finished. I was like, I finally beat Perfect Dark, and he goes, "We had that, didn't we?" It was honestly, it has like no substance to any of us, and it was really crazy because even he was like, "Yeah, I remember me and my brother were like super excited about it. We bought it day one, we played the first level, and we just lost interest, and that was it." And now that I've fully played through this game, I think I understand, because I don't remember exactly, why I dropped off this game. it's the difficulty. The way Perfect Dark operates, there's agent, I think it's secret agent, super specialist, super duper agent or something. And each difficulty, you know, obviously the enemies have more HP, the AI is a little bit better, their aim is better, all that fun stuff. But it adds additional objectives, and they're not all fucking optional. And if you fuck up on one, it basically tells you abort the mission because you fucked up. And there's no checkpoints. It is as archaic as they fucking come by today's standards. I did not play this game with save states. I'm putting that out there because this would have been the perfect candidate for save states with the way some of these levels are designed. Now, once you figure it out, once you play through the stage, you can beat it in 2 minutes. No problems whatsoever on the easiest difficulty. You can beat it in 5 minutes on the medium difficulty. Hard, fuck it. I'm not even bothering after the couple I did. But the fact of the matter is, as a little kid, I could see myself going to normal because that's how I roll, and just getting frustrated on the first stage, not understanding like I was supposed to save this person and going up and down in elevators and all that. I could definitely see why we all dropped off of it so fast as we did. At least with GoldenEye, it was kind of like, as far as I recall, because I haven't played the remaster that they recently did, pretty straightforward. Get to the dam. Disarm the bomb. Obvious. This one, it's like, find the guy who does this, that, the other thing, and infiltrate this. I took one mission. It took me like 40 minutes to figure out before I actually gave up and looked up a walkthrough. There's an item in your inventory. You point it at a PC and it unlocks a door. No idea. And that's where I think my love of Rare gets a little skewed, because as much as they were a brilliant development team back in the day and they made some iconic games, some of their fucking design choices make no goddamn sense to me. It's like they're trying to punish you for trying to have a good time, I think. But regardless, going through this game, the story, some people say is great. I thought it was, typical 90s action movie story. But it goes off the rails at a certain point. If you played through the game, you may know what I'm talking about, because I don't know how any of this tied together. And it kind of becomes a parody of itself. But to good effect. To actually really funny effect. But I was kind of confused as to where this all went. And the voice acting and the facial stuff that they did, at least in the Rare replay, it's fucking funny. Because it aged well, but it looks really old, I think is really the best way to put it. But overall, I'm actually really happy that I went through this and I did finish it. I just don't think I was... I expected more, as in I expected myself to enjoy it more and to be like, this is a really fun retro throwback shooter, and it's not. It actually made me want to play like Heretic and Hexen and all that stuff, and some of them are on this list like Quake, but I also didn't want to go FPS to FPS. Now, the next one I finished was Sonic 3D Blast, which was released in, believe it or not, where is it? I think it was 1996 as well. Yep, 1996. So Perfect Dark was in 2000, actually. So, was it really that long ago? No. So then I was in... Wow. No, I was in high school. Holy shit, I need another Diet Coke. If it wasn't a school night, I'd get out the whiskey. Holy shit, 2000? Marron. Oh my god. Yeah, I was in high school. Well, the memory's still the same. We did eat a lot of pizza and stuff, but still, wow. Holy. Happy birthday to me. So anyway, Sonic 3D Blast was released in 1996. That was 6th grade for me. 5th into 6th grade. So that would be the Christmas of 96, so that was definitely 6th grade. Which is when I would have gotten Sonic 3D Blast. But ironically, as much as my uncle loved Sonic the Hedgehog, I don't remember him ever getting me this one. And it's an interesting release because it was on the Genesis and the Sega Saturn. And truth be told, I actually have this on my list of stuff to get at the Midwest Gaming Classic for this year. And again, I usually don't like to put a time frame on it, but it is on my list. But since I'm doing this ahead of time, because we're doing it quarterly and we'll consider this Q1, it has been effectively removed from that list. And how would you say, Alex, I thought your rule was you don't consider a game finished unless you actually own it. And the fact of the matter is I do. I own it digitally on Steam, and I own it on several Genesis collections physically. I picked the Switch originally because I was like, I have to play it in a handheld. And then I decided to play it on the Analog Pocket instead. And thank fucking God I did. I would have snapped the Switch in half. At least the Analog Pocket is a little bit denser and a smaller form factor, kind of like ripping a phone book, if you know what a phone book is at this point. The smaller it gets, the harder it is. And because the Analog Pocket is filled with very expensive materials, I was not able to crack it in half, even though I really wished to. Sonic 3D Blast is a test of frustration. It is an isometric Sonic game in an era of games where you just want to go fast, and Sega or whomever is the development team keeps saying, no you fucking don't, slow your roll boy, you're gonna go fucking slow and you're gonna slip and slide like you're on goddamn ice. But guess what, it's Green Hill Zone. When the third stage, at least I think it was the third stage, is the fucking Casino Night Zone, you know you're in for a terrible time. So the premise behind Sonic 3D Blast is Robotnik's up to his no good shit, yet again. And he has kidnapped Flickies, the little birds. Not to Flicky, which is another Sega franchise, I believe. And basically, as you kill the things, defeat the robots, you free the Flickies. And I think it's 6 you have to find, and then it unlocks the next part of the stage. And you rinse and repeat. You do that over and over again. You get to Act 3, and then you fight Robotnik. No spoilers there. The challenge with this game was it was made during that in-between time of the Sega Genesis and the Sega Saturn. Sega Saturn came out, and there's a lot of history videos on this, and they're all very fascinating. Sonic 3D Blast, based on timing, they had to port it to the Saturn. Even though I think originally it was supposed to be a Genesis game only. Because they couldn't get, there was not enough market share between the two. So the port job is truthfully just a different soundtrack, a la Sonic CD, between the East and the West. But it was, I believe, an American studio. It was Traveler's Tales, who went on to do the Lego games. And I can kind of see a little bit of that DNA in there. I can kind of see it. But this was definitely, I felt like, I'm not going to say it was a tech demo, but it looked more like it was a pitch for something else. And Sega kind of said, I don't know if this is fact, I don't remember the history videos, but to me, I read it as this was supposed to be something else. And Sega was like, what if you throw Sonic on it? And then that's how they ultimately got it made. And then it got ported to the Saturn, so the Saturn would have a Sonic game because it didn't have one, because the Sega Saturn's release in the States was all haphazard. And we ended up with 2 different versions. And all the compilations, it's always the Genesis version. And a lot of people seem to say the Genesis version is the definitive version. I don't know why. And I will never know why, because I will never play this game again. It was really frustrating. And I'm not... Man, people are just making weird noises today. I'm only editing as much as I feel like with this one. This is a day. I already fucked up 4 years. I apparently was in high school and I thought I was in the 6th grade, and I can't drink because it's only 12:57 in the afternoon. And the cat's upset. That's where we are. But Sonic 3D, wow. But Sonic 3D Blast, man, I just I don't recommend it. I really don't. I'm happy I played it. It's been a thorn in my side for the longest time, truthfully, because I've actually wanted to play it for a bit, and I always just put it off. And that's why I do things like this, because it forces me to play into them. But I'm really more so surprised that my uncle never got it for me, considering he was such a big Sega fan. And growing up, he was the guy who got me all my games. Sonic 1, 2, 3, Sonic Spinball, which I actually like, Sonic CD, He also got me Sonic Adventure 1, Sonic Adventure 2, anything Sonic, pretty much, during that time frame. And for whatever reason, 3D Blast never made it, and I don't know why. Following that, I decided for the fourth game. Oh, this is an interesting one. For 2004, I had a pick of a litter here, and I wanted to go with something a little bit more high octane, a little bit more actiony, a little bit more Englishy. So I went with Metal Slug Advance on the Game Boy Advance, and I played this on the Analog Pocket through the dock because my wife, she knows I love the Metal Slug games, and she's seen me literally play through Metal Slug X like one credit, no problem, a couple of times, and each time I'm surprised because I don't think it's ever gonna fucking happen. And then I played Metal Slug Advance, and things started off per usual. You play as a different set of characters. Walter is the blue-haired guy, and some girl I don't remember the name of. And the first level kind of plays out like every other Metal Slug level, except the one thing I did notice was I was like, wow, they haven't given me the heavy machine gun yet. I'm sorry, heavy machine gun. They haven't given it to me yet. And then the difficulty just kind of shoots through the roof for whatever reason. But inherently, it keeps that arcade difficulty, but it changes it up a bit. You actually get an HP bar. You can't recover the HP bar. You lose all your HP, you die, you get a game over, and you restart. The difference is when you go through to another screen where it says like, go, and you go through it, that's a checkpoint. This is a problem with a lot of shmups from the early days where you would die with full power-ups before a boss, like your R-types, and then you can't beat the boss because you're, or Gradius rather, because you have no more power-ups. So it gives you a checkpoint before a boss, and now you don't have the heavy machine gun. You don't have the rocket launcher, or rocket launcher, depending on how you look at it. And all you have is a pistol and, 10 bombs. And they're all doable. But you die a lot. The game itself can be finished in 20 minutes if you know what you're doing. But for me, it took, I'd say, maybe an hour-ish. Because I died a lot. And that really, it's only 5 or 6 stages. It's really freaking short. Especially with the checkpoints. And it being on the Analog Pocket made it all the better. I would get frustrated, I'd pick it up, I'd go in the other room, I'd watch a YouTube video on how to beat a certain sequence, and then I'd come back, plug it back in, and then, go have at it. It's honestly I'm not going to say it's a bad Metal Slug game, but it's probably the furthest departure for what I enjoy about Metal Slug. And it is not a cheap game, which I originally got this used from GameStop back when they were doing used game sales online before they phased it out last time. And it was like buy two, get two or something. And I don't remember the exact price. I just remember it was like $5.99. I was thinking, if this thing isn't bootleg, I will be so happy. And it wasn't. It was official. I also got a complete Gauntlet 4 doing that on the Genesis, believe it or not. But with this game, I actually had a lot of high expectations for it. Different development house, of course, but I really enjoyed, the Guardian Heroes game that was on the Game Boy Advance, and I love Gunstar Superheroes, or I think that's what it's called on the GBA. This I expect it looks great, it plays great. The slowdown is the intentional slowdown I'm used to in these games. Like, there's no qualms about that, and it doesn't feel phoned in at all, to be completely honest. I just feel like the game is unbalanced. The last boss in particular is extremely over the top, and it is multi-tiered, as in there's attack windows, which is obvious, right? But when you have an arcade difficulty, but you can't put in quarters, it really makes it where you have to be perfect, which you can't be unless you trial and error your way through with the checkpoint system. And you can save and all that stuff, of course. But with the last boss, I was having a real tough time. It took me maybe 10 or 15 minutes. I get it down to where I thought I could beat it, and then I just die. And then I got frustrated, and I said, okay, let me YouTube how to beat this boss, because I must clearly be doing something wrong. and I find a video, beat the final boss of Metal Slug Advance. It's 2 minutes long. And I'm thinking, oh, this guy totally, just probably some fucking cheese method to beat this guy. Sure enough, there is. If you go through the stage perfectly, and you can get to the final boss while still in the Metal Slug, when he shoots all his crazy laser beams, you just gotta jump in and out of the Metal Slug over and over again, because that invincibility window will make it so you never get hit. You never have to dodge. You jump in, you jump out, you shoot straight up. You jump in, you jump out, you shoot straight up. Jump in, jump out, shoot straight up. Jump in, out, up and out, up and out, up and out, up and out, and keep shooting straight up, and he's dead. I was so upset that I was doing like this crazy like dance around all these bullets, like it was a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up, when all I had to do was hit up and down over and over again. Needless to say, I beat the boss using that method, and I got the ending, which is basically him graduating from what I guess is military academy, or getting a Purple Heart and a reward or something, and that was it. And I was like, wow, what a colossal fucking waste of time. But in the defense of SNK, because I love SNK so much, this was about the time they rebranded to SNK Play More, because they were having a lot of financial difficulty. And truthfully, the quality of their games around that time were really, I'm not going to say questionable, but their design philosophy had changed a lot. And you could definitely see that in the KOF entries around that time and stuff like this. Like, they were basically throwing stuff at the wall to see what stuck. And I think the Play More was because of a merger to keep it open, if I recall. But needless to say, this game does demand a high price. At least at the time. I don't know what it is now. It probably still does. I would not say it's worth it. I would say if it ever shows up on Switch Online, or you rather use unscrupulous means, do it that way. As a fan of Metal Slug, I'm happy I played it, but I would not go out of my way to say, oh my god, this is the one you must play. Play Metal Slug 2, play Metal Slug X, play Metal Slug 3, that's everybody's favorite. X is my favorite, but that's tied to playing that in the arcade with my buddy growing up for hours on end. But, you know, it's an interesting spread of 4 games, right? I went from, like, a franchise that I really only remember from when I was a little kid on the Sega CD, and then deciding, you know what, we're going to go ham on, like, adolescent Alex and teenage Alex, and just play all this stuff that's been chilling in the backlog. And that's where these challenges work for me. And I think as far as first quarter goes, this was pretty good effect. There have been a bunch of things I've been looking into that I really want to play that are in this list, and I've added to it since, actually. But at least as of this recording, there's a bunch of 2024 entries that are due on the horizon. So I hate to say it because I know it's gonna happen. I know I'm gonna be drifting towards those a lot. Good news is, because some of them are so long, obviously they're RPGs. Hopefully going through one of them will be able to tide me over until the next. But 2 are coming out in very short succession, and I've decided those were day 1 plays for me. So expect to see those later on in the year in the next quarterly, quarter 4-year leap year challenge update video. Yeah, I think we'll call it that, or something to that effect. Anyway, Battletoads is on this list, so that's going to be fucking fun. I've been Alex, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Take care. Hey everybody, future Alex here, as in future 5 minutes in the future after turning off the video. Completely forgot to acknowledge. Thank you everybody for your comments once again. What are some games you guys have been playing? You know, as much as I'm going to be putting up these videos, like as I squeeze them in and whatnot, I still am interested to know what you guys have been up to and what you're playing and whatnot. I'm always looking for inspiration. That's why I do challenges like these for myself to get through my backlog. And even as I'm scrolling through this now, you know, me just talking with people, I've actually added more stuff to it. So let me know what you're playing, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take it easy.